To outsiders, it was always picture perfect. One man, multiple wives, large blended family, and camera crews capturing the happiness of plural marriage. But what if the staged grins, the carefully perfected scenes, were masking a reality so dark, so explosive, that it was kept secret for years? What if I were to tell you that everything you believed you knew about Sister Wives and Kody Brown was masterminded, until one tape emerged that blew it all apart? This is not merely about reality TV intrigue. This is power, control, deceit, and the disintegration of a family dynasty founded on lies. And tonight we're lifting the veil on the last tape, the evidence that will change everything. Kody Brown constructed his life and his public persona around control. Since Sister Wives landed on TLC, he has been the self-assured patriarch, the guy juggling 4 wives with charm, discipline, and command. On TV, he was the leader, the one who made the decisions, the guy who kept disorder at bay. Control comes at a price though, and Kody insisted on it at all costs. Off camera, his wives, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and eventually Robyn, bore the brunt of his authoritarianism. Decisions regarding money, moves, and even feelings appeared to be about what Kody desired. If you dissented, you weren't merely different, you were against the family. But here's the reality: control only lasts so long as the silence that supports it. And gradually, cracks started to appear. Christine started to rebel. Janelle began to challenge the constant sacrifices. Even Meri, in her own troubled past, started drifting away. And all the while, Robyn was exalted as favorite, forging even more cracks. The control Kody struggled so mightily to keep was slipping. And he knew it. When viewers first watched Sister Wives, the picture was carefully constructed: a handsome man, Kody Brown, grinning broadly, arms extended, discussing family, religion, and the resiliency of plural marriage. The wives flanked him, sometimes fidgety, sometimes guarded, but always pleased to please. It seemed different, even revolutionary. Millions of viewers believed that they were witnessing a front-row seat to an honest glimpse of love, trust, and commitment 4 times over. But here's the thing. What the cameras showed wasn't the whole picture. Behind the polished family photos, behind the scripted chats on the couch, there was something a lot more nuanced. Kody wasn't merely a husband or father. He was the fulcrum in a universe where everything and everyone revolves around him. And at the center of it all was control. Kody's leadership persona. Right from the start, Kody presented himself as the leader of the Brown family. He frequently employed terms such as guidance, direction, unity, and responsibility. At first glance, these terms seemed chivalrous. Who wouldn't desire a firm leader who keeps the family intact? But for the wives, those terms had strings attached. If you accepted Kody's proposal, you were united. If you challenged him, you were disrespectful. If you shared your own desires, you were selfish. It wasn't leadership as in leading with love, it was manipulation masquerading as authority. The large family migrations narrated the story. Recall Utah to Las Vegas, or Las Vegas to Flagstaff relocation? Every time it was presented as good for the family. But most fans caught on to how little input the wives really seemed to have. Kody talked about consensus, but realistically, it was his voice that rang out the loudest, until the rest of them followed along. One of the most effective control mechanisms is division. And Kody got it down with time. Rather than encouraging harmony between the wives, he engaged in a balancing act where the obviousness of favoritism issued forth. Christine has frankly admitted to feeling excluded or being treated unjustly. Meri, following her catfishing debacle, was relegated even further to the periphery. Janelle attempted to maintain harmony, but frequently found herself opposed to Kody's strict expectations. Then arrived Robyn, the new wife who appeared to turn everything around. Her arrival not only revolutionized the family structure, but revealed how much Kody prioritized loyalty to him over sisterhood between the wives. The wives weren't being encouraged to become close friends with one another. They were being urged to show themselves devoted to Kody. That's not family cohesion, that's manipulation by subtle competition. Now, keep in mind, this wasn't a family. This was a family on national television. And when you throw in cameras, control becomes even more paramount. Kody skillfully crafted how their story was presented. He desired the world to portray him as a successful patriarch, juggling love and responsibility with ease. Whenever cracks began to appear, Kody worked double time to fill them in for the cameras. If Meri was upset, it was just a phase. If Christine complained, she was being dramatic. If Janelle wavered, she was struggling with commitment. By downplaying his wife's emotions, he played up his own as the solid rock-like leader. The more the audience perceived him as the anchor, the less they paid attention to the quiet tempest raging beneath the surface. Control was not merely about decisions or public perception. It was also about feelings. Kody tended to wield guilt and responsibility as emotional clubs. When a wife dissented, he'd appeal to the children, to their religion, or to the possibility that her attitude would destroy the family. Such phrasing doesn't merely debate. It pressures. It makes the wife feel responsible for conforming, or else risk being characterized as the one who destroyed the family. Christine in particular, revealed how exhausting it became to always feel like she wasn't enough. She gave, she sacrificed, she raised children, she kept traditions alive. But still Kody's approval always felt just out of reach. That's the devastating part of control. It makes you question your worth, even when you're giving everything you have. Now someone will say, well, isn't every family being led by someone? Don't most homes have one person that does the bigger share in decision-making? Yes. But here's the difference. In healthy family, leadership is shared. Power is balanced. Decision-making is discussed out loud. Within the Brown home, the pretense of partnership existed. But the fact was Kody at the head, and everyone else underneath. His say mattered most. His feelings determined the mood. His okay or disapproval determined the mood in the whole home. That's not partnership. That's control. The compelling aspect is how long the illusion was maintained, by the family and by the audience. Years went by while everyone thought that Kody was keeping things together. He informed us that plural marriage did work due to his good leadership. He informed us that the wives were in unison, even when it was clear they weren't. But cracks became too obvious to keep under wraps over time. Christine reached her breaking point when she understood that she could not bring up her children within a marriage where she was not respected or valued. Janelle conceded that her independence conflicted with Kody's demands. Meri suffered humiliation and ostracism, gradually disappearing from the family's center. The same control that Kody struggled so intensely to preserve turned out to be the reason everything started falling apart. And here's the irony, the more Kody struggled to control everything, the quicker he lost it all. Because control founded on fear, guilt, and favoritism isn't lasting. You can shut people up for a while. You can bully them into compliance. You can even fool the world into thinking you're the hero. But sooner or later, truth prevails. People awaken, and the facade collapses. That's precisely what occurred in the Brown family. When you consider the last tape, the one that revealed all, that totally makes sense for how explosive it was. For years, audiences suspected that Kody's leadership meant control. The wives teased it out. The storylines gave us a glimpse into it. And fans filled in the blanks. But the tape? That was the smoking gun. The concrete proof. The something that took away all excuses and laid bare the truth. Kody didn't just lead his family, he controlled them. And he did so at the expense of their happiness, unity, and ultimately the family itself. Control may appear strong on the outside. It may make an individual seem like the glue that holds everything intact. But strength in a family does not derive from dominating. It derives from respect, love, and partnership. Kody Brown had an empire founded on control. He thought it made him strong. But in fact, it had made him vulnerable. Because once the deception was revealed, once the wives no longer pretended, once the tape emerged, the truth came crashing down. The deception of control was powerful. But as all deceptions are, it could not survive indefinitely. Reality TV captures so much more than viewers ever get to see. Each finely tuned episode is preceded by hours of unedited footage, moments too raw, too painful, or too hurtful to be included in the show. The Brown family fit into that category. Producers allegedly had dozens of hours of footage locked away, bickering truncated, secrets confided off camera, and yes, tapes in which the truth regarding Kody's conduct surfaced in ways the world hadn't been privileged to witness. For years, those recordings were kept under wraps. The family continued on, smiling publicly, but breaking privately. But once the later seasons of the show began to implode from all these breakups, divorces, and feuds, producers had a decision to make: continue shielding the image, or finally expose what was actually going down. And then the last tape arrived. When viewers watch a reality program, they tend to think that they are viewing reality. Well, the cameras are on. The actors speak freely, and the editors compile everything into nice, tidy hour-long shows. What they don't remember, though, is that reality TV is manufactured. That is, for every hour that you get to watch on television, there are plenty of hundreds that never leave the cutting room floor. For the Brown family, it was particularly so. TLC recorded everything: dinner times, car rides home, one-on-ones with the camera, cringe-worthy silences, and naturally, the fire-crackling arguments. But none of it ever made television. Only a few episodes at a time saw the light of day. The rest, locked away in storage, raw footage, too real for prime time. And those secret tapes? They reveal an entirely different tale. Consider it: Sister Wives wasn't a family endeavor. It was a multi-million-dollar television franchise. TLC wasn't about to let a single moment of drama slip. The cameras didn't stop rolling when the situation became dirty. They kept rolling longer. The producers knew that conflict was gold, tension created suspense, and unedited emotion kept people watching. So when Kody lost his cool, the cameras were there. When Meri cried, the cameras caught it. When Christine whispered her suspicions, the cameras caught that as well. But presenting all of that raw would ruin the well-rehearsed public image of the Browns. So TLC made decisions. They edited out the bleakest moments. They shaved off the sharpest points. They presented us with the family-friendly version of a family in distress. Behind the scenes, raw footage accumulated, an entire storage closet of secrets. There were hours of bickering about money, late-night tell-alls in which the wives said they felt unloved or overlooked, footage of the children wondering why things seemed different in their home compared to other families. And then there were the secret sit-downs with Kody, moments when he shed the smooth charm and showed fans the authoritarian side they had glimpsed before. Producers didn't know they were holding a fire in their hands. But fire burns your hands if you let it out too early. They had to choose: shield the family image and continue making money, or risk everything by showing them the truth. Rumors started circulating over time. Cast members teased about scenes that never made it to air. Veteran editors conceded in interviews that a lot more occurred than everyone ever got to see. Even the fans started trying to figure it out, observing how episodes would frequently end just as a battle had just gotten heated. It was like reading a book with missing chapters. You could still follow the story, but you knew something important was being hidden. And then came the whispers. A final tape. One recording so raw, so powerful that it couldn't be ignored forever. It was different from all the other missing footage. It wasn't merely another argument. It wasn't merely Christine crying, or Meri feeling left behind, or Janelle questioning another transition. It was more. It was deeper. This tape, according to insiders, captured Kody not as the charming father of many, but as the unfiltered man behind the curtain. The one who demanded loyalty above all else. The one who lectured his wives not about love, but about obedience. The one who said, without hesitation, that his way was the only way. For years viewers had this side of Kody in their minds. They caught glimpses when he had blowouts with Christine, when he batted away Janelle's independence, when he iced out Meri. But the last tape, that was incontestable evidence. Why it wasn't aired at first. Why did TLC not air it when it occurred? Easy. Timing. The program was still in the black. The Browns' image as a unique but functional plural family continued to draw in an audience. If the network broadcast the tape too soon, the show could explode before they'd milked out every last season. So the footage gathered dust, patiently concealed, while the official narrative aired on television. Kody as overburdened but doting patriarch, the wives as struggling but supportive, the children as resilient and content. It was fantasy, and so long as viewers continued to watch, the network had no motive to dispel the fiction. It wasn't only Kody who seemed different on the tape's raw. His wives did too, and revealed considerably more than audiences ever got to see. Christine showed her mounting resentment. She told that she felt invisible and not loved, that Kody's favoritism with Robyn defeated her soul. Those words didn't air. Janelle complained of financial concessions, telling the producers she felt as though her independence was being taken away. But those moments were edited to avoid conflict. Meri cried about feeling isolated, her face smudged with tears, as she spoke of feeling emotionally abandoned. The saddest footage, left in the vault. Robyn, meanwhile, was often caught defending Kody, even when the other wives disagreed. Those moments highlighted the favoritism, but producers kept them minimal, knowing the fan backlash would be brutal. Together, these hidden moments told the real story, not a happy, quirky family, but a fractured one struggling to survive under Kody's dominance. The catch about secret footage is this: someone sooner or later breaks their silence. Either a member of the crew, an editor, or a family member. The truth never remains buried. And once rumors about the last tape circulated, fans understood this was no longer just rumor. It was proof. Proof that Kody wasn't the man he pretended to be. Proof that the wives were far less united than they seemed. Evidence that the show we'd all been watching was illusion rather than reality. And once you have evidence, you can't go back to pretending. It had been building for months. And by the time Christine announced her separation, the timing was impeccable. The family was breaking down in front of the cameras. The children were speaking out. The wives were actively rebelling against Kody on television. The illusion was already cracking. That's when the existence of the last tape became too large to be silenced. It wasn't just backroom rumor anymore. It was the smoking gun that made sense of all the things that fans had been watching their whole lives. Some people might wonder, why does this matter? It's just a reality show. But here's the truth. Sister Wives wasn't just entertainment. It shaped public perception of plural marriage. It shaped conversations about faith, family, and relationships. Millions of people tuned in every week, believing they were seeing something authentic. The secret tapes confirmed they weren't. They were witnessing a groomed story, edited with care in order to defend the patriarch at the core. And when that truth is revealed, it doesn't simply alter the way fans view Kody. It alters the way they view the show altogether. The missing footage, the hushed secrets, the last tape, these things are important because they reveal the gap between image and truth. They remind us that control wasn't only something Kody exercised in his own home. It was something he and the network employed to create the story we watched. Control has its boundaries, though. You can conceal footage, you can muffle voices, you can edit scenes, but you can't keep the truth hidden forever. And when the final tape came out, it did more than show Kody's hold on his family. It showed the hold the show had on us, the viewers, and how easily we accepted the illusion. Because in the end, the tapes everyone was not supposed to see became the truth that no one could deny. The final tape was more than a household fight. It wasn't carefully crafted camera fodder. It was honest, conclusive, and incriminating. In this recording, Kody is heard laying down the law, not as a father worried about his children, not as a husband trying to heal wounds, but as a man desperate to cling to power. He reportedly tells the wives that loyalty to him comes before loyalty to each other, that leaving him means betraying the family, the children, and even God. He talks about obedience, about sacrifice, about how his way is the only way. The tape is hard to watch, because it strips away every layer of charm and leaves only the raw truth. A man terrified of losing control. And the wives. Their silence in that room says everything. Some bow their heads. Some fight back tears. One stares straight ahead, as if waiting for the moment when someone finally says enough. This tape was not only the family's breaking point. It was confirmation of all that viewers suspected for so many years. The moment control slipped, each tale of power and control contains a breaking point. A moment when the walls come tumbling down, when silence is broken, when the individuals under pressure finally say, enough. For the Browns, it wasn't a moment. It wasn't one fight, one decision, one wife who left. It was years of little cuts, slow burns, buried hurts. And yet when the last tape surfaced, it poured gasoline on dry wood. All that Kody had fought so hard to keep under control suddenly burst into flames. This was the moment when the vision of a Meri plural family broke, and reality about Kody's control, preferential treatment, and desperation could no longer be denied. Now, let's discuss what made the tape so explosive. Unlike the edited, family-friendly episodes we watched on TLC, this footage was not meant to spare Kody's image. It was unedited, it was awkward, and it showed a side of him that fans had only imagined for years. On tape, Kody sits with his wives in what appears to be a family meeting. But this wasn't a conversation. It was a sermon. His tone is biting, his voice authoritative. He presents his rules allegiance to him first and foremost. Disobedience is betrayal. Questioning his actions is tantamount to destroying the family itself. And this is the scary part. He makes obedience an article of faith. He informs his wives that their spiritual place, their devotion to God, are determined by their obedience to him. That's not leadership. That's control by fear. The room falls silent. Christine gazes at the floor. Janelle clenches her jaw. Meri holds back tears. And Robyn, always his nearest to him, nods in stunned acquiescence. This wasn't a bad day, or an angry fight. It was a template for how Kody thought his household should be run. And when the wives saw it played out in all its ugly detail, many of them knew they couldn't live under that template any longer. Christine had been getting to her breaking point for decades. Viewers caught glimpses of it. Her irritation at being treated like a basement wife. Her hurt at seeing Kody's clear favoritism towards Robyn. Her fatigue at shouldering the emotional and physical burden of having children without backup. But the tape verified what Christine had sensed all along. She wasn't in a marriage, she was in a system. And that system required her silence, her submissiveness, and her allegiance, even where there was no longer love. Christine's departure wasn't a rash decision. It was the culmination of years of abuse. She wanted her kids to grow up witnessing love, not domination. And when she finally departed, it was as if the first domino had tipped. Janelle's experience was different. She had always been the most independent of the wives, the one who cherished career, independence, and pragmatism. She endured Kody's control for years, because she felt a vision for the big picture of keeping the family together. But the tape showed the price of that accommodation. Kody's language had no space for independence. In his universe, autonomy was not strength. It was rebellion. For Janelle, who had constructed her life around maintaining equilibrium between family and liberty, this was the ultimate test. Her breaking point was when she understood that her independence was never respected. To Kody, it was a fault to be fixed, not a strength to be appreciated. Meri had spent years outside. Following her catfishing debacle, Kody freely confessed that their marriage was finished in all ways short of legal. Viewers saw her sit quietly through episodes, there but not there, holding on to hope that things might be reversed. The tape merely served to validate what Meri already realized. She was no longer a wife. She was an accessory, grudgingly accepted for show but not invited into actual partnership. Her breaking point wasn't as much of a scream as Christine's or as angry as Janelle's. It was quiet, accepting, hurting. But it was nevertheless a breaking point. It was the moment she ceased to hope Kody would notice her, and began to notice herself. And then there was Robyn. On the tape she supported Kody, nodding in agreement, backing his demands for loyalty. To the other wives, this confirmed what they had long suspected. Robyn wasn't just a wife. She was Kody's enabler. Robyn's devotion to Kody made her stand out from the rest of the family. And although she felt like she was saving the marriage, she was actually digging the hole deeper. To viewers, Robyn was the embodiment of favoritism. To the wives, she represented all that they'd lost. Ultimately, even Robyn couldn't shield Kody from the brunt. Her support for him left her the last wife standing, and most resented. The breaking point wasn't solely about the wives. However, the children felt it as well. They witnessed their mothers drift away from Kody, as fights took the place of giggles, as loyalty to their father became something commanded rather than achieved. Some of the children came to Kody's defense. Others sided with their mothers. But they all got swept up in the maelstrom. And when the tape was released, it did what many of them already suspected. It made it clear that the family was not together, but torn apart. When rumors of the last tape became public, they weren't surprised. Fans were vindicated. For years, fans had been calling out red flags. Kody's belittling remarks, his obvious favoritism, his fiery temper. The tape didn't tell fans anything they hadn't known. It vindicated their claims all along. Social media went wild. Hashtags became trends. Clips went viral. And overnight, Kody's public persona, as the self-assured patriarch, crumbled. He wasn't the one holding it all together. He was the one breaking it all down. In the case of TLC, the breaking point was a dilemma. On the one hand, the drama generated ratings. Folks couldn't turn away from the slow-motion implosion of the Brown family. On the other, the tape engendered very important questions regarding how much the network had covered up. By sitting on the footage, had TLC shielded Kody at the cost of his wives? Had they scripted the show to maintain it lucrative? And if so, how much fault was theirs for facilitating his dominance? The tipping point wasn't merely personal. It was public, professional, and ethical. It was not just words that were recorded. It was the system. Kody's insistence on loyalty was decades of muted voices. The silence of the wives in the room spoke to the fatigue of being ignored. Robyn's compliance spoke to the favoritism that tainted the family dynamic. The tape was not just a moment. It was a mirror, a reflection of all that had gone awry. Why the breaking point matters. Breaking points hurt, but they're potent. They are change. For the wives, the tape was the last nudging they needed to end tolerating and begin living. For the viewers, it was the realization that the perfect plural marriage was a myth. And for Kody, the breaking point was realizing control isn't eternal. No matter how tight you grip it, the truth does have a way of breaking through. The Brown family's breaking point wasn't one moment. It was the culmination of years of control, favoritism, and silence. But the last tape brought it all into focus. It made everyone, wives, children, fans, and even Kody himself, confront the truth. Because ultimately, however intense control may seem, love, respect, and truth are greater. And once the point of breaking had been reached, nothing could ever remain the same again. When bits of the truth started leaking out, everything shifted. Christine acted first, speaking out publicly about her break from Kody. Her tone was measured, but the signal was clear. She was finished being dominated. Janelle came next, her freedom finally outweighing her patience with manipulation. Meri, long humiliated and pushed aside, also broke away, though her tale had its own depth of sorrow and complication. That left Robyn, the last wife standing. But even she couldn't outrun the shadow of the tape. Rather than being Kody's victorious partner, she was the face of favoritism, the face of division, the reminder of the failed system. Viewers who used to watch for an offbeat family situation now watched in shock, as the empire came crashing down. The man who used to have everything was now losing everything in front of an audience of millions. The point of breaking had been reached, but more dramatic was what occurred next, the fallout. When the truth of Kody's dominance was irrefutable, when the tape revealed the reality of life in the Brown home, the repercussions began to follow quickly. It was like a domino line. Christine's leaving was the first domino to fall, and when that fell, the rest of them tumbled after in ways no one could have predicted. The fantasy of one plural family was destroyed, and all that was left was the ruin. Christine Brown made the first public declaration of leaving Kody, and it shook the pillars of all that he had created. For years she had been termed the emotional wife, the one who nagged the most, the one who was jealous. Fans could see her hurt, yet some wrote it off as drama. But when Christine at last turned away, the story changed. She was no longer jealous. She was courageous. She had made the toughest move, leaving a man who insisted on loyalty but gave very little love back. Christine said it simply, "I deserve love, real love, and I'm not going to settle for less anymore." That sentence hit fans like a thunderclap. It wasn't just about Kody. It was about every woman who had ever felt invisible in her own marriage. Every partner who had stayed too long out of guilt or fear. Christine's exit was personal. and universal. Her departure didn't only liberate her, it emboldened Janelle and Meri to reassess their own futures. Janelle was always the pragmatic one, the voice of reason in the midst of the turmoil. She put up with Kody's domination for years out of devotion to keeping the family together. But Christine's exit made her understand something strong. She didn't have to remain either. The backlash against Janelle occurred when Kody started insisting more on compliance. He insisted on loyalty in family meetings, challenged her autonomy, and condemned her for not conforming. For the self-sufficient Janelle, this was the turning point. In interviews, she acknowledged that her marriage to Kody had moved from partnership to dictatorship. And when she witnessed Christine flourishing outside the marriage, she knew independence was not merely an option, it was a requirement. Janelle's choice to leave wasn't passionate or theatrical. It was rational, methodical, and resolute, just who she was. And it had just as much significance as Christine's outspoken declaration. Meri's story was perhaps the most heartbreaking. For years she had been on the outside looking in. After her catfishing scandal, her relationship with Kody had all but ended. He said publicly that he had no romantic interest in her, reducing her to a symbolic presence rather than a wife. The damage to Meri wasn't about departure, because in a very real sense, she had already been left behind. The tape only ratified what her position was in the family: voiceless, set aside, overlooked. When Meri did finally realize her marriage was at an end, it wasn't with drama, it was with acceptance. She admitted to holding on too long, waiting for something that would never come back. Her exit was subdued, but there was great grief attached to it. For the viewers, it was a reminder that not all breaking points lead to empowerment. Sometimes it leads to loss. And then there was Robyn, the wife who stayed. During the fallout, Robyn clung to Kody, defending him, agreeing with him, and saying that staying loyal to him was the way to save the family. But rather than bringing the wives together, Robyn standing with Kody further exacerbated the cracks. Robyn became the embodiment of favoritism, the poster child for why it all fell apart. To others, she wasn't a wife. She was Kody's favorite, the reason the other marriages collapsed. Fair or not, that was how it appeared. In the aftermath, Robyn lost not just sister wives. She lost the vision she sold herself on, a large, whole plural family. What she gained was Kody, and the wreckage of what had been. Her weeping on television revealed it all. She had not wanted this. She thought she was becoming part of a family. What she got was alone. Her devotion losing her the unity she sought for Kody. The blowback was crippling, not only personally, but in public. He had constructed his whole persona on being the assertive patriarch who could do it all. The head of 4 wives, the father of 18 kids, the man who made plural marriage work. That persona was his pride, his brand, his legacy. But as wife after wife departed, that image imploded. Rather than the leader, he was the villain. Rather than the glue, he was the wedge. Rather than the strength symbol, he was the failure symbol. And the tape? That was the evidence fans had been waiting for. They no longer needed to wonder about favoritism or control. They had proof. Kody's interviews later on showed a man who was falling apart. He raged about betrayal, about lack of loyalty, about how the wives had ganged up on him. What he couldn't see was that the fallout wasn't about loyalty. It was about freedom. The fallout didn't just strike the adults. The children were hit hard. Some took their mother's sides, resentful of the way Kody had treated them. Others stood up for their father, convinced that he was trying his best with impossible conditions. The schisms between the wives carried over to the next generation, forming cracks between siblings who had been close once. For most of the older children, the tape was proof of what they had seen for years. Their father was not the hero he portrayed himself to be. For the younger children, it was disorienting, heartbreaking, and confusing. The blowback wasn't merely about marriages dissolving. It was about a family disintegrating at every level. The fallout did not occur in secret. It transpired in full view of millions. Social media erupted with arguments. Some of the fans stood up for Kody, stating the wives understood what they got themselves into. But the majority supported the women. Christine was hailed as a hero. Janelle was lauded for her self-reliance. Meri was sympathized with. their agony treated as a cautionary example. Robyn was the lightning rod for negative comments. And Kody, he became the cautionary example of what goes wrong when control takes over love. The scandal made sister wives from an offbeat reality program into a cultural discussion. Not only were audiences watching a family disintegrate, they were watching a narrative of power, loyalty, and the price of silence. For TLC, the backlash was a double-edged sword. While the drama put the ratings higher than they had ever been, viewers couldn't turn away from the destruction of the family they had been watching for more than a decade. The network also had to face its own part in the saga. By concealing the tape for so long, had they shielded Kody at the expense of the wives' honesty? By cutting out the most disturbing moments, had they fabricated the show to keep everyone in suspense? The explosion caught everyone from Kody and the wives and children, to the fans and even the network off guard with uncomfortable questions regarding what had been truly going on the entire time. By the time the dust had settled, it was evident what the fallout was. The Brown family, as viewers had come to know, no longer existed. Christine no longer existed. Janelle no longer existed. Meri no longer existed. Robyn was alone with Kody. The plural family dream was over. The control empire that Kody constructed had crumbled. And the man who had once appeared to keep it all together now stood amidst the wreckage of his own creation. The backlash of the last tape wasn't merely about marriages crashing, it was about control crashing. It was about women regaining their voices after all those years of silence. It was about kids witnessing the truth for the first time. It was about viewers understanding the show they watched for the sake of entertainment was in fact a slow-motion tragedy. Kody thought he controlled everything. But the fallout proved the opposite, because when control is built on fear, silence, and favoritism, it doesn't last. It cracks. It collapses. And when it does, the fallout is impossible to stop. So what is the final tape all about? It's not just a jaw-dropping clip. It's proof of a trend. The confirmation that what the world witnessed on Sister Wives was merely half the tale. The reality is, Kody's domination was never a matter of love. It was fear, fear of losing his reputation, fear of losing control, fear of being left behind. And in the end, that came to be the reality. His wives departed. His family splintered. His reputation failed. And the viewer who had been mesmerized by the illusion of oneness saw the reality exposed. The last tape is the whole truth revealed, that under the reality show, under the pretenses of religion and family, was a man so eager to cling to power, that he stood to lose everything thereby. And perhaps that is the lesson learned, not only for the Browns, but for us watching. Control based on silence will always collapse when the truth finally reveals itself. The moment the curtain fell more than a decade later, the audience thought they were seeing an experiment in a family, the test to see if plural marriage was possible, as long as there was plenty of love, patience, and faith. Kody Brown was right at the middle of the experiment, setting himself up as the man who made it happen. But when the last tape emerged, the curtain came down. The charade was over, and the truth spewed out, not merely about Kody, not merely about the wives, but about the system that had ensnared them all in silence for so long. This wasn't reality TV melodrama. It was reality itself, laid bare for the world to witness. So why did this one clip weigh so heavily? Because after all, Kody had been in arguments before. They had seen him lose his temper, favor some, and brush off his wives' emotions. The difference was that this tape did not leave room for apologies. It wasn't edited, sanitized, or posed to defend him. It was raw, uncensored, and irrefutable. In it, Kody did not discuss love, partnership, or oneness. He discussed obedience. He explained to his wives that loyalty to him was more important than loyalty to one another. He linked their devotion to their spirituality, and he left no room for differing opinions. The tape exposed what fans had long suspected. Kody's leadership was not about guidance. It was about control. And when control is the basis of a family, love does not apply. For Christine, the tape ratified everything she had gone through for years, that she was not respected, not valued, and not loved as a wife should be. Her choice to leave was not about freedom alone. It was about truth. The truth that remaining meant betraying herself. For Janelle, it evidenced that her independence was never valued. She had established her own strength, sustained the family economically, and raised her children with resilience. But Kody didn't value independence as strength. He viewed it as rebellion. And when the reality of that came out, she knew she had no place in his family vision. For Meri, it took away the last bit of hope. She had held on to the idea that perhaps someday things could get better. But the tape indicated to her that there was nothing to struggle for. She was no longer a wife to Kody, only a remnant of a marriage that had been over for a very long time. And for Robyn, the truth was multifaceted. She had stood up for Kody, defended him, and stayed loyal. But ultimately, loyalty couldn't salvage the family. The tape revealed not only Kody's domination, but her complicity in facilitating it. The truth wasn't just with the wives. The children had grown in the shadow of Kody's dominance as well. Many of them had already come forward about feeling disregarded, about seeing their mothers cry, about witnessing the favoritism play out in real time. The tape was their proof. It wasn't imaginary. Their father had valued obedience above relationship, loyalty above love. For some, it was a closure. For others, it was heartbreak. But for all of them, it was the end of the illusion. The audience's truth viewers had always argued as to whether the show was real or fake. Some felt the Browns were doing everything they could to get plural marriage to succeed. Others felt it was all about ego, fame, and money. The tape shut the debate. It revealed that the family we saw wasn't just struggling. It was drowning in Kody's domination. The good times were real, yes, but they were covered up by the unspoken reality. This wasn't partnership. This was domination. And once people saw that, they could never look at the show the same way anymore. The fallout also raised uncomfortable questions about TLC. For years, the network had edited around Kody's behavior, presenting him as the charismatic patriarch rather than the controlling figure he truly was. By hiding the uncensored footage, they had defended him, and by association, the show's bottom line. But when the tape emerged, their narrative-shaping influence was outed as well. The truth wasn't simply about the Brown family. It was about how reality TV warps reality. They started wondering how much of what we were watching was actually real, and how much was meticulously edited to keep us tuning in. For Kody, the reality was shattering. He had always thought that he was the hub of the family, the one that kept everything together. He convinced himself that his domination was leadership, his favoritism was fairness, his demands were justified. But the tape removed all the excuses. It revealed him not as a leader, but as a man grasping at power, not as a father forging unity, but as a patriarch demanding compliance. His truth was this: the more he pushed to control everything, the more he lost. His wives departed, his children withdrew, his reputation fell apart, and the empire founded on control shattered before his eyes. Aside from the Browns, the tape exposed something more. Something all of us can relate to. Families, marriages, relationships. They cannot thrive on control. They cannot exist on fear. They cannot develop when one expects obedience rather than offering love. The Brown family's situation is special, but the lesson it teaches isn't. Control always breaks. Secrets always emerge. And truth, however long it is hidden, always manages to get out. Others may wonder, why does this matter? Why does a reality show family's downfall warrant so much publicity? It matters because millions of Americans were duped. They watched for years hoping to be witness to love, connection, and belief. They bought into the tale of a family struggling against the odds. And when the truth finally became apparent, it wasn't all about the Browns. It was about us. It made us think about what we believe. When we view reality TV, it made us observe how quickly image can stand in for reality, and it reminded us that behind every heavily edited show, there are real people living with the effects. The final tape will never be forgotten, as the turning point, the point at which the truth could no longer be suppressed. It's not just a piece of film, it's a symbol of the wives taking back their voices, a symbol of the children seeing the truth, a symbol of the audience waking up. And most importantly, a symbol of the breakdown of control. Kody used to think that he was in control of everything. But the tape showed otherwise. Control was what ended up killing him. In the end, the Brown family story is more than the story of a man with 4 wives. It's the story of what occurs when control fills the space of love, loyalty being demanded rather than earned, and when silence is utilized to keep an illusion intact. The last tape revealed everything. Revealed the reality the world wasn't meant to know. And once reality had been revealed, nothing could ever be the same again. The wives gained freedom. The children gained clarity. The fans gained answers. And Kody, he stood alone in the ashes of the empire he created on control. He controlled it all. Until he didn't. And with that truth, the entire story was eventually revealed.